Lola and Nkechi had long felt like prisoners within the walls of their school. Every day was the same routine: classes, assignments, and the constant pressure to conform. The school seemed like a cage, and they were both itching for something different. It wasn't just the strict rules or the monotonous lessons, it was the dream of something bigger, something more exciting. One evening, after a tough week of exams and lectures, they overheard a conversation in the hallway that changed everything. A classmate, a girl who was known for her social media posts and extravagant outfits, had just returned from a wild night out. She gushed about a rich businessman she had met through a runs connection, someone who promised fast money and a lifestyle that seemed worlds apart from the dull life they were living. The idea of it, the freedom, the wealth, the thrill, was intoxicating. Lola's heart raced, and Nkechi couldn't stop thinking about the possibilities. Why should they sit in classrooms all day when they could have all of that, just by stepping outside the rules? That night, they made a decision that would change their lives forever. They sneaked out of their dorms, leaving behind the only life they had ever known, in search of something more. Lola and Nkechi stepped into the nightclub, their eyes wide with excitement. The neon lights flashed, the bass of the music thumped, and the air smelled of expensive cologne and alcohol. It was nothing like the sterile walls of their school. This was the world they had dreamed of. Here, they weren't just two students, they were free, vibrant, and ready to live big. As they walked through the crowd, a man in his mid-40s caught their attention. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his smile smooth and his confidence undeniable. He introduced himself as Chief, a name that felt oddly authoritative. He was a regular at high-end spots like this, and his wealth was obvious from the way he carried himself. At first, it was all compliments and promises. He called them beautiful, telling them they deserved better than the life they were living. He offered them drinks and the kind of attention they had never known before. For a moment, it felt like a dream come true. But as they followed him out of the club and into his sleek black SUV, the thrill started to fade. A strange unease crept over them, but neither Lola nor Nkechi said a word. The city lights blurred outside, and both girls wondered, silently, if they had made a huge mistake. The days after their first encounter with Chief felt like a blur, the excitement they once had turning into a constant knot of fear in their stomachs. When the sleek SUV pulled up to a large mansion hidden far from the city, Lola and Nkechi could hardly believe their eyes. The place was massive, with towering walls that made it feel like a fortress. The opulence inside was overwhelming. Everything was polished, expensive, and perfectly designed. But the beauty of it all felt suffocating, like a gilded cage. Chief, who had once been charming and smooth, now seemed cold and distant. The warmth he had shown in the club was gone, replaced by demands and a sense of control. Lola and Nkechi were introduced to several men whose cold glares and harsh words shattered the illusion of luxury they had bought into. This wasn't about the carefree freedom they imagined. This was a trap. Every moment in that mansion was filled with tension. They realized, far too late, that they weren't just here to enjoy a wild ride. They were part of something much darker, something they didn't understand, and it was becoming clearer by the hour that there might be no way back to the lives they once knew. Lola and Nkechi knew they had made a huge mistake, but now it was too late. The reality of their situation sank in like a heavy weight, pressing down on them with every passing hour. They tried to leave, desperately begged Chief to let them go, but his cold, calculating smile only made their fears grow. He had already made it clear that there was no way out. They had no money, no plan, and no one they could trust. Everything they thought they knew about freedom and excitement was a lie. Each attempt to break free was met with threats. "You think you can just walk away?" Chief's voice was icy, full of menace. The girls were trapped, caught in a game where the rules didn't apply to them. With no options left, they were forced to stay. The glitzy world they had dreamed of was nothing more than a facade. Behind the luxury and the promises of wealth lay exploitation, manipulation, and fear. As days turned into a blur of silent suffering, Lola and Nkechi became shadows of the confident, hopeful girls they once were. Regret consumed them. They had no choice but to endure, to stay quiet, and hope, in vain, that things would somehow get better. Lola and Nkechi had reached the breaking point. The fear that had consumed them for days started to shift into something darker: desperation. The luxurious mansion that once seemed like a dream now felt like a prison. Every day, they waited for something to change, for someone to help, but nothing came. The life they'd dreamed of had become a nightmare, and they knew it was time to act. They couldn't live in fear anymore. The hope of escaping, however, was tainted with dread. What would happen if they were caught? Would they ever make it out alive? The weight of those questions threatened to suffocate them. But staying wasn't an option. That night, after a tense confrontation with Chief and his associates, Lola and Nkechi saw their opportunity. The mood in the house had shifted, and Chief seemed distracted, his attention focused elsewhere. It was the opening they'd been waiting for. With shaky hands and pounding hearts, they made the call. This might be their only chance to escape the hell they were trapped in, but they knew the risk. If they were caught, the consequences could be deadly. Still, there was no turning back. This was their moment to fight for their freedom, no matter what it cost. Lola and Nkechi's escape may have brought them back to safety, but the damage was done. The authorities were quick to investigate, and soon enough, Chief was arrested. The full scale of what had happened to them came to light, how they'd been manipulated and trapped in a world they didn't understand. Their parents, devastated by the truth, welcomed them home, but their relief was laced with sorrow. They were safe, but the emotional scars from the experience ran deep. The girls knew they couldn't undo the past. No matter how much they wished they could turn back time, it was impossible. The allure of the outside world, the promises of luxury and excitement, had drawn them in. But the truth was far darker. Behind the glittering facade was a dangerous reality they hadn't prepared for. It was a painful lesson they'd have to carry with them for the rest of their lives. Their story, once filled with dreams of wealth and freedom, had become a cautionary tale. Now, they felt the weight of their choices and the silent suffering that came with them. They couldn't change what had happened, but they could speak out. Their voices would become a warning to others, showing the true cost of chasing a dangerous dream.